Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes. We are giving you composite power rankings in the FCS heading into week 6. These are not our opinions. These are 6 computers that we respect. We have averaged their rankings, come up with our composite 1 to 131. We will mostly focus on SEC teams, but we will point out some other interesting things with some other teams as we go down this. And Blake, first thing that stands out, boy, the Big Ten and the SEC are just dominating the college football landscape according to the computers.
Yeah, they seem to love them. We talked last week about some of those teams that had kind of made their way up. Of course, Minnesota has fell since then, but yeah, we kind of pointed that out last week, looking at sort of top four, of course, occupied by the SEC and the Big Ten, and then you kind of go beyond that. And you look at some of those teams, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to look at. So.
We will have the full 1 to 131 up at our website, Southeastern 14, so you can see exactly where everybody falls. But starting at the top, it is an SEC team. Is Alabama 1. Georgia has fallen to number 3 with Ohio State in between.
Yeah, like we said, not shocked to see that because of, we talk about the differences. Georgia almost slipping up at Missouri and Alabama with, yeah, I think they had that stretch there where Arkansas made the comeback, but still a pretty dominant performance at times for Alabama in Fayetteville there. So, yeah, I mean, I think, moving Alabama back to the top. And as we said, I think, it seemingly at this point, understanding that Bryce Young's going to be okay. And so I think any of those kind of doubts of, oh boy, could Alabama start to tumble? I don't feel like that's the case here, barring an upset this weekend from A&M. So
Alabama was number 1 in 6 of the 8 computers. FEI, the lowest on the Tide at 3. And actually, Michigan tied in Phil Steele with Alabama this week. No, Phil does not always break his ties. Sometimes you will have 8-way ties in rankings and stuff. So Alabama and Michigan, which is 4 in our composite, are tied at the top spot. Rounding out the top 10 would be Utah at 5, Clemson at 6, Texas at 7, Ole Miss at 8, Oklahoma State at 9, Tennessee at 10. So 4 SEC teams, Blake, in the top 10.
yeah, I mean, we talk about Ole Miss, the team that's has certainly made the biggest move of all. I think in terms of where they maybe were at one point to where they are now. Although, as we talked about going the season, they were pretty high, and we just didn't know what to make of them. Right? We talked about kind of you didn't know how much value to weigh on some of those wins, and but now though with the win over Kentucky, they move up, like you said, to a pretty nice spot here, and Tennessee is not really moved all that much at all when you consider what they've done this season. And again, they'll have a big chance perhaps to keep moving forward if they can beat LSU this weekend. So 4 teams in the top 10, I don't think that should shock you. Although, as we said, kind of the rotation of teams has been interesting to this point to see beyond the top 2, because again, we really haven't moved Alabama and Georgia all that much in these composite rankings. But it's interesting to see what the computers have thought of, the teams that have went out and proven what they've needed to prove. And the biggest part of all is winning games. And that's what Ole Miss and Tennessee have done. So,
yeah, Ole Miss high ranking is 7. That is the SP plus. Low ranking of 12. That on Sagarin and team rankings. That's a very low range for teams in that area. Usually there's a little more diversity of opinion, but the computer's pretty united on Ole Miss between 7 and 12. Tennessee, a little more discrepancy there. The Vols team rankings has Tennessee at 6. 4 of the 8 have Tennessee in the top 10. Pro Football Focus, which is probably an outlier on a lot of teams, has got UT at 20. They're probably not my favorite computer, but I do put them in there because they have some interesting things. Let's see, rounding out the top 20, we've got Penn State at 11, Minnesota 12, TCU 13, Southern Cal 14, Mississippi State, Blake, at 15. The Bulldogs, again, not a huge range of opinion. High ranker on Mississippi State, SP plus at 11, below Phil Steele at 25. standard deviation of 5. So Mississippi State, according to the computers, a top 15 team.
Yeah, and like we talked about in our staff power rankings, which does weigh personal opinion. We talked about those this week, and we said those teams: Mississippi State, Kentucky, LSU. We were like, it's hard to figure out the order, although you have had a head-to-head with LSU beating Mississippi State, but it is the full kind of picture. And yeah, so I think it's interesting to look at it from a computer standpoint and see that Mississippi State is the high of that group, with Kentucky and LSU. So, but like you said, I think you know one loss. We talk about like it's. I think it was disappointing at the time, but I think we just look at the overall team quality itself and the numbers. Yeah, perhaps should not be as surprised to see Mississippi State this high just based on what they've done again outside of that one game at LSU.
There are 2 more SEC teams in our computer composite top 25. And again, we're going to get to all the teams. We will not name them all, but we will get to all the SEC teams. Before we talk about those, a quick word from our sponsor, Stakes. There's some big games coming up in the SEC this week. To add some extra excitement, we at Southeastern 14 went ahead and made some predictions in the Stakes app, including some on Tennessee LSU. You might want to check those out. Those were hard to make, I'll be honest. And we will talk more about those on our live show tonight, which will be Wednesday night. More importantly, though, we want to hear from you guys. Do you agree or disagree with our picks? Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Sign up for Stakes. Place your predictions. If you are for or against our picks, if you use the invite code Southeastern14 when you sign up, you'll get a double welcome bonus. It is all free. It is a lot of fun. Have some fun yourself. Support our title sponsor. You won't regret joining the Stakes app. Okay. 16 Cincinnati, 17 Notre Dame. Again, the computers mostly go by margins of victory and stuff like that, and not who you beat. I don't think Notre Dame is a top 20 team at 2-2 with what it's done, but the computers do think that. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma 18 takes a big fall. Kentucky takes a fall to 20. And 19. Oregon at 20. Kentucky, Blake, Pro Football Focus still has it 8. Other computers' team rankings has it 26. Sagarin at 23. So a little diversity of opinion here on the Wildcats, but everybody has still got Kentucky, except for team rankings, which has got Kentucky at 26 as a top 25 team.
I'll say, by the way, give me Kentucky, LSU, maybe a couple of these other teams ahead of Notre Dame. I don't, like you mentioned, that's one of those that I kind of look at and I'm like, I don't know about that. But yeah, I mean, look, maybe Chris, I should be lobbying for Pro Football Focus for having Kentucky that high, because I keep saying I'm the one that's still kind of hanging on to Kentucky here and thinking that, look, they've lost one game. They lost at Ole Miss. They certainly had their chances, but like you said, there may have been some things that have kind of stood out with them. And, you look at it and wonder kind of where they're going to fall. Of course, this is another big week playing a South Carolina team that they should beat. And maybe it's a matter of, look, if you come out and get one of those convincing wins, maybe the computers start to love you even more, perhaps beyond Pro Football Focus. So, yeah, I mean, Kentucky here, in this spot, I think, like you said, I mean, I think they're another one of those teams that's kind of been hard for maybe the computers to gauge at times, just based on, playing some of the teams they played outside the conference. But nonetheless, I'm going to be in support of this one because, again, I still think Kentucky probably belongs in this range here. It's just, it's just a matter of winning some of these games and improving in some of those different areas. So.
Yeah, blame Phil Steele for Notre Dame. Phil Steele's got Notre Dame at 9. SP Plus has Notre Dame at 30. That's the low. I still think that name must carry some weight because I'm not seeing it. But anyway.
They beat North Carolina and who?
Didn't beat Marshall. I know that much.
Lost to Marshall, Ohio State. Have beaten Cal and North Carolina.
Yeah, Cal and UNC are decent teams, probably bowl level teams, but beyond that, I don't know. Okay, 20 we have Oregon, 21 Baylor, 22 Kansas State, 23 LSU. LSU has got the highest standard deviation in the top 25, and you can thank Phil Steele for that. I don't know if it's a misprint. Phil Steele has LSU at 61 this week.
It's got to be a misprint, right?
I don't know. Although he did not have them very high a week ago, and losing to Auburn at Auburn, which he's got Auburn 3 points better than Vanderbilt. So Phil Steele may just not have liked, or his computer may not have liked Auburn and what happened with LSU barely winning that game. Anyway, other than that, LSU nowhere lower than 26. FPI, the high ranker on LSU at 8. I mean, look, it doesn't matter. A lot's going to get settled this weekend. And if LSU can beat Tennessee in Baton Rouge, which frankly, I'm very conflicted on that game, LSU would be higher next week.
Okay, so I went back. He had him at 36 heading into the season. So they lose to Florida State. What have they done since then? They just won games. They beat Mississippi State. They
Right.
beat Auburn. It's got to be. It's got to be a misprint. It's just got to be. Like
It's got to be. Yeah.
I cannot justify it any other way. So before LSU fans go crazy, please don't attack Phil Steele. We assume it's a misprint, but still, beyond that, like you said, if you look at kind of the other numbers from a computer standpoint and such, like we said, if LSU beat Tennessee this week, they're going to take a huge jump up. And, here they are kind of in this spot right here. But if they beat Tennessee, I mean, we're talking top 15 ish, somewhere in there. Maybe, I mean, for some of these, like you said, looking at the high numbers on some of them, I mean, they may move up into the top 10 ish range. So,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously a big week for LSU.
If you take Phil Steele out entirely, LSU number 13 in our rankings.
Yeah. So they're moving into the top 10 if you take that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So just so you know, we are going by what he's got on paper, which is 61. But in any case,
we love Phil Steele. Don't attack him.
Right. We all make mistakes.
Misprints happen.
That is either a misprint or that is just a gross computer error. But anyway, yeah. It is what it is. That's what we have. Let's see. Rounding out the SEC, Arkansas takes a big fall down to 27. Arkansas, let's see. Pro Football Focus loves the Razorbacks at 12. And ESPN's FPI has Arkansas all the way down at 41.
I mean, like we said, I'm not shocked by that. I mean, I think it's. I hesitate to say this, but I think you could even look at some of these and wonder if they're too high. Because I think, but again, remember, we're talking about computer rankings here, so there's a lot that goes into it. But if you just kind of look at the trajectory of where they've, and they lose to A&M, they lose to Alabama. There's no shame in losing to Alabama, but I think for probably you and I who have watched those two games, the Alabama game specifically, and yes, they made the comeback and all that, but it's clearly a team that, as we said, is entering a tough part of the schedule. And, we talked about the possibility of perhaps losing 4 in a row. They've lost 2 in a row now. Doesn't get any easier this weekend against Mississippi State. So, yeah, not ideal for the Razorbacks. And we'll just kind of see. I mean, look, they can certainly jump back up if they win this weekend. But if not, certainly wouldn't be surprised by another tumble perhaps for Arkansas.
Yeah, Oreo's very upset with the Arkansas.
He's not happy because he knows we got a lot of Arkansas fans like Rusty out there and Flying Blind and all our people. And you know what? They're not happy right now. So
my dog feels your pain. Okay, 32 Texas A&M. Let's see. A&M is 23rd by SP Plus. That is the only. Well, no, I scratched that. Sagarin has got A&M at 25. Pro Football Focus at 39. The low. It seems like you hear Pro Football Focus as the high or low on a lot of these. The PFF and Kenneth Massey seem to be a lot of times the outliers. Massey also has got A&M at 39. Okay, beyond that, let's see. Next SEC team is going to be, it's either Missouri or South Carolina. It is South Carolina at 54.
I think we skipped Auburn.
Oh, we did skip Auburn. That was not intentional. Or did we?
I don't think it was intentional, but we did skip Auburn.
Okay.
They are about
Auburn at 49. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. SP Plus has Auburn at 32. Phil Steele's got Auburn all the way down at 73.
Hmm. Well, maybe that explains the LSU one. If
I think it might.
that may explain it. So
Yeah. So anyway, Auburn's almost got to the point to where maybe it's a little underrated. A little bit.
I don't know
We
if I
can
can
get
go
into
that
that
far.
on our Wednesday night video.
Yeah, let's save that for tonight. That may be a discussion. So
This may be splitting hairs. Okay, South Carolina at 54. Not a big range of opinion on the Gamecocks. 46 the high, 62 the low. Pro Football Focus lowest on Carolina at 62, and SP Plus the highest on Carolina at 46. Missouri at 58. Same thing, high ranking of 48. That would be ESPN's FEI. Low ranking Pro Football Focus. My goodness. How many times has Pro Football Focus been the high or low ranker on an SEC team? It's been a lot. And then we've got one SEC team left. That is Vanderbilt. The Commodores all the way down at 87. The high computer on Vanderbilt, Kenneth Massey at 71. The low, Jeff Sagarin at 105. And I think Sagarin's got Vanderbilt even lower because he also includes FCS teams in his rankings, but just for the FBS portion, Vandy at 105. So other teams of interest.
by the way,
I know
Chris, did we
Kansas.
mention Florida?
Oh, we didn't. Thank
I was
you.
gonna say, sorry, not to. I promise, Florida fans, it was not intentional, but we are looking at a color coded sheet here, and sometimes things just kind of skip over, and you feel like you've already said something when you haven't. But I think I just realized we didn't mention Florida.
And sometimes your eyes just go bad.
Yes.
You'll find this out eventually. Florida at 39. Okay. Gators, high ranking of 30 in Sagarin, low ranking of 52. That is Phil Steele. So we have wrapped up the SEC. Other teams of interest. Wisconsin. It is shocking to see Wisconsin this low in computer rankings. Wisconsin is at 36. Maybe the athletic director knew something the computers knew that I've not seen Wisconsin that low, and I don't even know how many years. Here's another shock: Illinois at 31 under Brett Bielema.
Yeah.
You've got Kansas, everybody's darling. The computers do not like quite as much. They've got them at 46. Here's another one: James Madison at 48. First year in Division I, Blake. The computers love James Madison.
Had that win against Appalachian State, and guess who's right beside him in the rankings, Chris? Appalachian State. So
Appalachian State won ahead, and Auburn won behind.
yeah, so that's interesting. Then Kansas, like we said, what about Kansas? Ooh, they are moving on up. Game day headed there. So yeah.
James Madison one spot ahead of Auburn. I'm sure that will sit well with Auburn fans.
Well, could be worse.
You could be Colorado. You don't want to be Colorado. Things are not good in the state of Colorado right now.
I'd say both. I see both the teams that are right
It
beside each other.
is rare that you see an FBS. Vanderbilt lived in this territory a year ago. Colorado just fired Carl Durrell. I was shocked he got hired. The Buffaloes are 0-5. Carl Durrell said this weekend when asked he was not worried about job security.
Wow.
I don't think Carl Durrell read the room very well because he got fired, on Sunday afternoon or Monday. The Buffaloes, the national champs from 1991?
Been a while.
Long way away from that. 123, but at least they are better than in-state rival Colorado State, which Jay Norvell is taking a wrecking ball to. CSU 124.
Well, the good news, Chris, there's plenty to do in Colorado outside of football. So
Like watch Air Force. Air Force is where? Although it's not been a particularly good last 2 weeks for football in Colorado because the NCAA put Air Force on probation last week. Air Force at 55 in our power rankings. Of all the problems with college sports, I don't know about you, Air Force was a little lower on my list than maybe some other things that have gone on, but the NCAA is teaching everybody a lesson by putting Air Force on probation.
Well, again, a lot to do in Colorado, but we won't get into tourist attractions for the state of Colorado here on this SEC, NCAA composite rankings here. But we'll get into that in maybe a bonus membership episode of Southeastern 14 at some point.
The bottom 10, starting with worst: Don Brown's UMass team, then Florida International, New Mexico State, Hawaii, Akron, your fifth worst team in the country, followed by Charlotte, UConn, Colorado State, Colorado, and Temple.
All right, there you go.
All right, we do these every week. We'll be having our live stream tonight where we talk about SEC football and the games coming up. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to download the Stakes app. Use that promo code we provided. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon on Southeastern 14.